Welcome to the Anchor Your Retirement podcast. I'm your host, Barbara Gullen, in the studio today with my usual sidekick, my buddy, my pal, my confidant, Tony Shore. How you doing, Tony?
Well, Barb, I'm excited to be here. Great to see you. And congratulations. You got married over the weekend. I hope you don't
I
mind me
did.
bringing this up and
Nah.
sharing it with our viewers and our
Yep.
listeners. Congratulations. I can't believe
Thank
you're
you.
back in. What was the day of the actual wedding? Saturday?
The wedding was Saturday, and then we left Sunday and got away for a few days and got back yesterday afternoon. And I
Oh,
can't think
so
of any place I'd rather be than here recording a podcast with you.
I'm like, she's already recording a podcast. She just got married last Saturday. Well, this is good. I guess you did take some time off. That's
We
good.
did. We did, and we will probably take a little bit more time off in a few months once all the
Sure.
dust settles, literally and figuratively.
From the moving and all that,
Yeah,
and
yes,
you're moving into a new office, which is gonna be exciting.
yes. And so this studio will look a little bit different in a couple of weeks, which
Great.
I'm excited for. I'm
You're
very
gonna
excited
still
for.
you're still gonna have the picture behind you, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
But the
okay.
walls are gonna be a slightly different color, and, it will be a whole new dedicated studio, so I'm
Yeah,
really
awesome.
looking forward to that.
Yeah, you're gonna have a new studio in the new place. I love that. Well, hey, Barb, we're going to talk about something we haven't talked about in a long time.
No, not in about 132 episodes, I don't think.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we've done a lot of shows and um really it's such an inspirational story on why you're here doing this now and
Mhm.
about your father, and there's so much we can relate to. And I encouraged you even last week. I'm like, you should tell that story again for our listeners and viewers as a reminder. I want to hear it again. And I know so they don't have to go back and listen to an old show, right? And we have a lot of new listeners and viewers. So
We do.
um yes, we do. So um I don't know where you want to begin with this story. I'll let you tell it.
Well, my childhood was spent hopping around the country, which a different perspective on everything.
Sure.
I was born in Chicago, or Chicago, as they say up there, and my dad worked for the Veterans Administration. He was a social worker, and he ended up being on a team that set up treatment plans for Vietnam veterans to treat what we now call post-traumatic stress. So, it was interesting. It didn't that diagnosis didn't exist
Right.
when the veterans
PTSD
came home.
didn't. Yeah,
Right,
no.
right. And I try not to call it a disorder because it really is just a nervous system response to being in all kinds of chaos.
Yeah.
Um, and Vietnam was the first war, really, where somebody could be on the front lines or in a place where they were literally fearing for their life and have their tour finish, and 24 to 48 hours later they were back in the United States. Their bodies and their brains didn't have any time to recalibrate and to regulate again and to grieve. My dad talks about walking down the street with a friend of his that had just gotten home, and they heard a plastic cigarette wrapper crinkle, which again is telling you how long ago it was that was the triggering event. And the guy panicked and pushed everybody down to the ground,
Oh my
thinking that it
God.
was gunfire. Um, and so, my dad got involved with this, and tangentially our whole family did, because we moved from Chicago to his first um the first hospital where we were at was in Sheridan, Wyoming, which is 1,200 miles away from Chicago and has a slightly smaller population.
Hmm.
just in case you were wondering. There were, when we lived in Sheridan, I think there were like 8,000 people in the town. And we started off in a town about 20 miles east of there called Dayton that had 200 people in it. So, it was like big news when Sheridan, the county seat, got a McDonald's there while we were living there.
Hey, when small towns get a McDonald's, I remember when McDonald's started to blow up in the late 70s, early 80s. And boy, when your town got a McDonald's, out in the country.
And we would not fly back and forth to see family. We drove, and it was Interstate 90, and the speed limit back then was 55. And my dad would work when we were driving back to Chicago, my dad would work an early shift that day. He would work 6 to 2:30 instead of his usual 7:30 to 4 or whatever that was. And my mom would make sandwiches and load them up in a cooler and would annoy the heck out of everybody because I wanted my sandwiches plain. Nobody else wanted a plain sandwich. And invariably, my dad ate my plain sandwich and was complaining to my mother about the plain sandwich when it was really all the other sandwiches had stuff on it. I just wanted meat, cheese, bread. That was it. I'm a little better now.
Not so picky. You can eat a sandwich with
I can eat a sandwich. I can eat a sandwich with other things on it. And she would fill up 2 thermoses with coffee. And my dad would get home. We would load up the station wagon and drive overnight, basically, because it was an 18-hour drive. I do remember there was one time my sister and I were counting off every 5 minutes and asking our parents what time it was. That didn't last long. Really didn't. I mean, just doing kid stuff. And I know they drove overnight so that my sister and I would be asleep for most of the trip.
Yes.
So
smart parents.
Probably helped us survive a whole lot of things. Because it was the 70s, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, all of that to say, we went from Wyoming to Iowa, landed in Kansas City. By the time my dad was in Kansas City, it was the mid 80s. Early 80s.
Yep.
And they were pretty much done setting up the treatment programs. And then my dad went to work on the nephrology, the kidney unit here at the Veterans Administration that's on Van Brunt that I still drive by periodically. So, and have clients that work there.
Yeah, that's neat.
So, I mean, things have come full circle. But when my dad had gotten in at least 20 years with the government, he decided that it was time to go into private industry. He wasn't going to be able to move forward in his career without moving us again. And by then I was in junior high. My sister was in upper elementary school. I was in 8 different elementary and middle schools before I hit 8th grade. And my parents, it was a lot. And my parents wanted to give us some continuity for our older high school years. Because, I mean, they had both been born and raised in Chicago. My mom went to elementary school and high school with the same people. There was a friend of hers that was one bus stop away from where my mom got the bus to go into the city to go to the Catholic convent school. And they would both check to make sure that the other one was at the bus stop before they would get on the bus to go to school. My mom and her friend had a perfect attendance for high school. Neither one of them ever missed a day.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, but they wanted to give us some of that continuity and let us put down some roots. So my dad decided to step away from the federal government and go into private industry. My dad had enough years of service where he would have been eligible for a pension not too far down the road. And that pension would have not only provided him with a lifetime income, it also would have provided his health insurance for the rest of his life.
But he had no one to stop and tell him.
He didn't have anybody explaining this to him and advocating it for him. And my dad was a diabetic who had a lot of comorbidities and complications with it. By the time he passed away, he was on 25 different medications.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I watched him. He chose to take his deposits into the pension instead of delaying the pension. And the banker he was working with at the time convinced him to use that as collateral to start a business.
Oh,
So, my dad was good at making money. He was even better at spending money. And I say that with all the love in my heart because I think there are a lot of people out there like that.
oh yeah. Yeah, I'm
And
pretty good at spending money myself.
well,
But
and my dad never did just one thing. He was a social worker for the Veterans Administration, but his bachelor's degree was in biology and specifically in genetics.
wow.
So he bred Australian finches. And
Wow.
yeah, and there's pictures of me. I learned how to walk holding onto the sides of a bird cage from inside the cage. My dad would build these big cages so that the birds could fly
Sure.
and not just be in a small cage. And he would sell these birds all over the country. And in fact, I went to the Smithsonian when I was a junior. I was a junior in high school when we went. I couldn't remember if I was a junior or a senior. And they had they had like a taxidermied finch that my dad used to breed, and they had it mislabeled. And so I actually got a piece of paper and I wrote a letter to the curator of that division of the Smithsonian right then and there, and wrote them a letter and let them know that that was the wrong name and that it in fact was this finch and it originated from here, and that what you had was a very rare yellow-headed version, which actually was orange, and it was a yellowhead because the genes suppressed a lot of the red blood cells. So, I gave him the whole science lesson right then and there because I'd heard my dad tell the story so many times.
Sure.
But anyway, my dad decided to take those deposits with him and use that as collateral for a business. And the business ultimately ended up failing. And my dad lost everything that he had access to as a federal employee and the benefits from working for the federal government for over 20 years of his life.
Ooh.
Because he got the wrong advice. And I didn't understand it then. I was a teenager.
Right.
But as my ex-husband and I got involved in the insurance industry, and at the point that we started working with federal employees, I did not have my licenses. I had had a son several years before who had only lived for 19 days. And I had been licensed prior to that and decided that I really wasn't in a headspace to be managing anybody's money because I was having trouble managing life at that point. But as we became affiliated with Gradient Financial Group and met Mark Groom and Mike Byers, two tremendous agents that I know you know very well and have a lot of respect for, they introduced out into a program where we could help federal employees work with their benefits. And as I learned what was going on, I then realized what my dad had left on the table. I realized at that point that no matter where this industry took me, I wanted to be in a place where I was helping people make qualified decisions based on the information that they needed to make those qualified decisions, and not gatekeep information and not make recommendations that were going to make me or my family the most money, but that were going to be the greatest benefit to the clients.
Well, imagine if your dad had that, and it's just it's got to be frustrating once you learned. Oh my goodness, the life changing. It would have changed his life for the better. It
really would have, because my dad was much more suited to being self-employed.
Yeah.
And in private practice. Once he stopped working with Vietnam vets, he eventually ended up building a pretty decent sized practice working with kids, and specifically kids that were coming out of abusive situations.
Wow.
He took that PTSD training and translated that into helping
Wow.
littles.
Yeah, it
process
would have
all of that.
enabled him to reach visions and goals that he wasn't able to because of the situations. And I
And
mean,
it would have
it's
taken a lot of
life-changing.
stress out of his life to have
Yeah.
had the health insurance, because as a diabetic, he needed to have that health insurance. He
Yes.
needed to have those benefits.
Yeah.
And this was before the Affordable Care Act was passed.
Mhm.
And this was before agents and the industry was good about talking about being able to get health insurance outside of that group health plan.
Mm.
So I would watch my dad frequently work multiple jobs, usually
Yeah.
one full-time so that he had benefits, and a couple of part-times. Even when he went into private industry, he was working the night phones for a mental health crisis line. And
Wow.
during the day was running a pet store and had a couple of other things going on, as well as a private practice for his social work and therapy. So he was always working. And I would watch him stay with a full-time job to get on the benefits. Invariably, there was some sort of conflict. My dad was first generation American Italian, and he was, if nothing else, very passionate about what was right and wrong, and very passionate about what he did.
Sure.
So he would leave the job. He would carry the COBRA insurance for the 18 months that you could carry it. And then rinse and repeat, would go get another job to have the health insurance coverage. And, in his private practice, after he and my mom divorced, my sister and I took over doing all of the insurance billing for his private practice. And we would fill out the claim forms and submit progress notes and stuff when we needed to. All of those things to help the family business keep going.
Yeah.
And I know that had to take years off of his life. My dad died before he was even eligible to collect Social Security.
Wow. Yeah. See, and it's amazing the difference that would have made. And you see that, and that is a motivator for you to help people. And it's so sad that happened to your dad and those circumstances, and he made the wrong decisions just because he didn't know. There was no guidance.
No,
You
the
have
banker
to.
made more money using that money as collateral.
Well, sure. That's their motivation. But yeah, I mean, even with the federal benefits, that he made the right decisions all the way along. He would have had those health benefits. He would have had the bigger, better pension
Right,
longer.
because he
And
was in
so,
the old retirement system, so he would have
yeah.
gotten a very substantial portion of his salary for the rest of his life.
Yes, and health benefits. That's
Yes.
and that's huge. So and this isn't just, I mean, this is a big lesson for our federal employees and workers out there, or government employees, but it's also, this applies to anybody in any situation. When you've been with a company a while, where are you putting your retirement money? What are you going to do with it? People make these kind of huge mistakes with their 401ks, with their IRAs,
They do,
with their
especially
legacies. I mean, they just make huge mistakes.
And now that there's legislation that mandates that people participate in a 401k plan unless they intentionally opt out, I think that legislation is good. I think we needed that.
Yes.
But along with that, I think that people need lessons in financial literacy.
Yes.
And
It should be a core. It should be along with math and English, finance. It's as nowadays, it's as or more important. I mean, not more important than learning how to read or add, but it's as important as math. It is math. I mean, personal finance should be, and investing should be, courses that are started in 6th grade and taught all the way through.
Right.
And they should be required in every school.
They should be. They should be, because, back when I was in elementary school, which doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but every year it gets further and further
Barb,
away.
we're going to say it was just days ago. Yeah.
There we go. People still had pensions.
Yeah.
Both of my grandparents had pensions.
Yeah.
My dad could have had a pension. My mom could have had a pension because she worked for the federal government for 5 years. And at 62, she could have also, but she had a much smaller deposit and she took those with her when she separated, but she used that to pay for school. So at least she used it for something that ended up creating an income and a benefit. So we didn't have to worry about it. Then this thing called ERISA came along. And that was legislation that started transitioning the responsibility for retirement income from the employer to the employee. And that's when we started developing these things like 401ks and 403bs. So these are all things that, my generation is one of the first to really have to rely on this for our income in retirement. And there's so many different options and there's so much that you can choose to do. And with a lot of these plans, now I am an advisor. I am not your advisor. I am not looking at your plan document for your retirement plan. But with a lot of these mandated investments, those investments are going into very conservative allocations with the idea that they're putting the money away. At least they won't lose much if there's fluctuation in the market. But the other side of that is they're not gaining much either. And you can't expect to put away 3% of your income for your entire career and be able to retire and have your current lifestyle.
Yeah.
The math just doesn't math. You need to look at different ways of saving. You need to understand the difference between a stock index fund and a bond fund or a money market account and understand the plan and purpose for each of those things. And even though, we have the internet at our fingertips, we have too much information at our fingertips at times.
Yeah.
Where if you try to go in even to AI and plug in something about how should I save for retirement, you're going to get something spit out to you that, first of all, may or may not be accurate, doesn't take into account your age or your risk preferences, and is just general information that they've scraped from a million websites, not something that's tailored to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think, Barb, it's good to know that you can sit down with our listeners and viewers and go over their personal situation, which helps you evaluate and help them make the right decisions with their benefits. So they can maximize them and, they fit in with their overall plan. Like, what do you want to accomplish? Where are you at? Everybody's situation is different.
Right.
And different parts of the government, it's different. There's so many ins and outs. You talk about them here on the show, but also just what you're going to do with that 401k, making the right investment decisions. It is critical. You can make not only costly mistakes, but mistakes that can affect your future and your family's future. Like,
Absolutely.
What happened with your dad. It's sad that things could have turned out so much differently.
It really did. He never got to meet his youngest granddaughter.
Yeah.
Because I was pregnant with her when he passed.
Oh.
And, he had he had about 6.5 years with my oldest daughter, and she was the oldest grandchild. Wow. So he never got to see them grow up.
Yeah.
And I would like to think, and maybe it's not the healthiest thing, but maybe if he had had that pension and had that base income and had the health insurance benefits, that maybe that stress would have been a little bit less and we might have had him a little while longer.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably so. Well, so people need to take. I think this is the thing I get out of this is, hey, we've got to take our finances and benefits seriously,
You
and
do.
we need to get the right advice. That's the
Mhm.
key here, isn't it?
And the thing is that you are in control of your future financially.
Yes.
But you only have so much knowledge and are equipped with so much. It's the same as, if your health is in your own hands, but when something isn't going right or you're not sure, you go to a doctor.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the financial services industry sometimes gets a bad reputation for being a bunch of people that are just out to get your money. And there are a lot of us out here that that's not the case, and that it's helping you make a qualified decision based on your specific circumstances.
Yes.
And that's not something that you're going to get from listening to a daily radio show. It's not something that you're going to get from even watching the financial channels, because even though they are giving advice, they are giving very general advice. And a lot of the people that are out there that have those daily radio shows or that have that weekly presence talking about finances do not have active licenses right now, which means that they can't be held accountable by any
Right.
of the regulatory firms for what they do or don't say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and they should be held accountable, and you are as a
Right.
fiduciary, and I think that's really important.
And that was
Well,
why when I went to get relicensed again, my first set of licenses, I was working for a broker dealer, and I didn't have that fiduciary standard that I have now.
yeah,
And, even now I'm working toward getting even more credentials with my chartered financial consultant and a couple of other credentials so that I can be of greater service to my clients.
yeah, there you go. Well, how can our listeners out there and viewers get a hold of you to set up that consultation?
The easiest way is to go to our website, bgwealthmanagement.com. And in the upper right hand corner, there's a button that says book a consultation or something to that effect. And you can fill out a form and we'll get back to you. Or you can always do it the old fashioned way and call our office at area code 913-553-6222 and select option 4 for appointments and scheduling. And Christina will get back to you if she doesn't answer the phone right then and there and get you on the calendar to meet with myself.
All right. Well, Barb, I want to give that number out because I think a lot of people are going to be, hey, I want to make sure I've got it, all my ducks in a row. 913-553-6222, or go to bgwealthmanagement.com.
Yep,
Correct?
that's correct.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing. I know it's an emotional story, Barb, and it's very inspiring, though, and motivational to hear about what happened with your dad and why you do what you do and why you need the right advice. So,
Yep.
so important. And I think it's neat that you've really dedicated and let that drive your desire to help people, federal employees, sort through the mess that are federal benefits.
It means a lot to me. And,
Yeah.
I talk to people every week that don't understand what they have access to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't think most don't. I think, and that's what scares me.
Mhm.
That's pretty scary. All right. Well, thanks, Barb, and listeners, viewers. Have a great week. That does it for today's episode of Anchor Your Retirement with our host, Barb Gullen.
We'll see you soon.